But today we are talking about pricing. From my end point, it would be from an entrepreneurial point of view. I didn't make it to a point in corporate where I got to a point of negotiate. Well, like one time, that's it. Where I had to like negotiate my wage and all those type of things, or my benefits, my salary, all those things. I never really made it to that point, but I will be talking about the entrepreneurial side of it. What goes into setting prices, raising prices, presenting your price, and standing in your price, and those benefits and repercussions of that. And then, I mean, Tiff is gonna chime in as well. I mean, we're both married to entrepreneurs, so it's not like it's foreign ground for her either. But she can talk more about how to negotiate in corporate America, like negotiating your salary, your benefits, your time off, those type of things, and what goes into that, or what level of education, or what level of not success, but what level of management or higher up you have to be, or when it actually becomes like a real tangible thing that you have to do within corporate America. Just so our 9-to-5ers on here not left out. This isn't just an entrepreneurial talk, or none of them are going to be. We want to make sure you guys know it's from both perspectives. There is a place for you to, like, if you clock in, there's a place for you. And if you're trying to get out of the clocking in, or if you are running your own business, it's a place for you too. This is a conversation because all the conversations are applicable in every scenario. So we're just going to talk about all those vantage points. Go ahead, Tiff.
All right, so first of all, happy Sunday, and I appreciate you joining in, as Tequila said. So the price is the price. Let me just level set a little bit, take a step back. We've seen a lot of kind of back and forth entrepreneurial conversation about setting prices, especially after COVID, and two, during this inflationary period that we're in, where everyone's expenses and costs seem to be going through the roof due to the markets and impacts from supply chain and everything else going on in the world. So we wanted to take a minute to just take a step back and have a conversation with you guys about what does it mean to set your price, how to go about that, and then on the flip side, what do we experience in corporate, and also to Tequila's point, how there are synergies between setting your price in your business and setting your salary in your career. So first off, I want to level set on one point really quickly, and then I'll turn it over to Tequila. When we say price, I want to differentiate between price and cost, because sometimes people use those two terms interchangeably. And while most of the time they can be kind of coordinated into one sentence, it's the viewpoint basically that separates the two. When we talk about price, we're talking about the external view. So what are you going to charge a person for your services or for your goods? And think of it as this is what I'm putting out externally to the world. Versus cost is more of an internal metric, right? Cost is what do I pay for something? So as a consumer, if you're selling a service, if I go to Tequila Salon, I may ask her, how much does it cost me to get my hair done? And her response is, well, the price is XYZ. And that's kind of the differentiator between the two. They're very similar.
You kind of instinctively do that. I know I do that, because people are like, oh, how much it costs? And I'm like, the price is whatever. And I instinctively do that. And most people instinctively do that, because when you're in that environment, it's like you understand those meanings, and you understand that there's a difference. You might not could put a word or put it into thought, but you automatically kind of instinctively like, yeah, it don't cost you what it really costs you. This is the price though. So
Right. Yeah. And that's a good point, because the other differentiator is your price. In common practice, your price should include not just what you would pay for to have your good manufactured, or the hours that you put into the services, all the expenses that are included in setting that. Plus, if you're doing business properly, you're thinking about your margin or the amount of profit that you want to make from the service. That's included in your price. So a lot of people like to charge kind of like a flat, or they kind of do a break even model where I put in this much, I should get back what I put in. That's absolutely
I mean, you're gonna crash and you're gonna be, that automatically puts you in a hustle mindset. You're never gonna get what you need to actually create the business. And when we were doing Squared, that's what we paid attention to. While talking to a lot of entrepreneurs, they really just wanted to break even. I want to get back what I put in. But you're not creating anything where you can put anything to the side. You're not creating anything where you can expand. You're not creating anything where you can hire. And you must hire in order for you to actually create a business where you can walk away from, where you can sell, where you can profit from, where that makes sense as far as scalability and sustainability. Because no matter what you do, you can only do it for so long if you're the one doing all the work. Like if you're the one actually performing the work, you can only do that for so long. And that goes into anything. It doesn't matter what you do, even if you're in commerce or a physical laborer. Even if you're in commerce, you have to teach that business to someone else. You have to hire on assistants. You have to hire on buyers. You have to hire on these things if you want to truly be able to step away from it and for it to manage itself. And same way with physical labor, you can start off that way, but setting your price at something reasonable, that's gonna, and reasonable is subjective. Do not, is definitely subjective. Setting your price at something reasonable for you and your business and your growth of your business is, you have to do that in order for you to hire on, so you can step back into a place of management or overseeing, or even if you're planning on, like I said earlier, selling your company for a fee or for some type of profit. It has to have these things in place to make it valuable. Oh. And you said you touched on it earlier, the actual, all this goes into the setting of the price, because I had that in mind, like keep in mind overhead. And I know when we're thinking about overhead, normally we're thinking about rent, we're thinking about supplies, we're thinking about tools, we're thinking about product, we're thinking about packaging. And all those things are absolutely should be in the forefront of your mind when you're setting your price. But there's things that we don't think about and we do not add on to the overall price, because you instinctively know these things. You already have these things in you, so you're not thinking about like charging for it. But it's education, the level of care you have to have with certain clients, certain products, certain projects that's gonna up the price. Your time that you have to put in, the demand. If you are in a very demanding market where there's not a lot of people who do what you do, the price goes up. The price goes up because what you gonna do? You know, like that's a really easy. That's why it really makes sense to find your niche to get into, where it's very direct. Is pointed to a very narrow audience. Well, not a narrow audience, but a very specific audience who understand the value in that, because there's nobody else who's going to do it, or the pickings are so few. You have that leeway to charge more for that. The insurance that you have to get to cover yourself, malpractice, or just operational insurance And if you're covering someone else underneath your name, you have to charge for that. You have to charge for what if somebody doesn't provide you with a 1099, and now you got to pay for their taxes at the end of the year because you paid them over $600. You need to put all those things into play. The connections and networks you may have. If it's a benefit to working for you, like you work with XYZ, or you have connects here, there, and wherever, and your clients benefit from having a relationship with you, that's a price. Yeah, all those things, and then the level of difficulty altogether of doing what you do. So those are non-tangible things that should be, I hate to should you, but that could need to be in the forefront of your mind when we're talking about overhead. It's not necessarily, I'm going to work out of my house to not pay rent or whatever. Like, if there's so much more that goes into our overhead that we need to have a better understanding and wrapping our heads around.
Right. And another one that comes to mind is fees. Y'all, let me tell y'all something. I know y'all know this, but I'm just going to say it anyway. Price setting in corporate, anytime anything fluctuates in a corporate space and some type of admin fee or something is added in the corporate space, it is a pass-through to the consumer. I know y'all know this, but you don't apply it in your business, and you should. The reason being is if a customer wants your product, if your value proposition or what it is that you're selling is worth the price to them, if you go up for a fee, they still gonna pay it. If you add something to it, they're still going to pay it because your brand and your value proposition are that strong. So from the corporate perspective, when something comes down the pipeline, let's say, not just expenses from the perspective of buying the good and then taking it through the value chain. I'm talking about credit card processing fees.
Absolutely. It's a convenience fee. You pay them on that. You pay them all the time. It's a convenience fee. It's because, one, it costs you to have those systems in place for it to even be an option for this client to not have to write a check, to not have to give you cash in hand, to not have to go to the bank. Like, that costs you. So in order for me to provide you with this convenience, you have to tack that on. And depending on what type of work that you're in, that credit card fee, that's 3%. If you're charging, you do art and you're charging $15,000 for a piece of art that somebody's paying with a credit card because of convenience, that's 3% off of $15,000. Like, why would you do that? And people, they'll be like, well, I can write it off at the end of the year. I don't want to write it off at the end of the year. You still can write it off at the end of the year. Like, all those things come into play. Like, that's still an expense at the end of the day. So I get it if you don't want to say, come right on down and be like, 3% credit card fee, just bake in the 3% or however many percent overall, overall sales or whatever, to just make sure you're covered, because that can take a chunk out of your bottom line, and there's literally no reason for that.
Yep. Right. And honestly, I mean, we're just being real. We know as consumers, we don't know everything that's baked into the price when we pay for something. We just go out and pay for it. So there's a guideline there to let you know you can do that and you don't have to disclose. Like, you don't necessarily have to disclose that you're adding on 3%.
Yeah, and just put it. I mean, if you want to be that transparent, that's perfectly. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's also nothing wrong with not being that transparent with it at all. Like, if you really do feel as though I don't want to add that on, or you're getting backlash for that, bake it in the price, because you have to bake it in. Because, like Tiff said, as a consumer, you don't know what's in these prices. All prices are arbitrary, honestly. And you really don't know everything that's baked in or what it all includes. Because that's up to the manufacturer or the producer or the creative or the entrepreneur or the corporation to consider all these things, and that's why we're here. That's why we're having this conversation. Like, consider these things and put it in your price, because all these things add a value, a price point, a value point to what you're doing or what you create or what you're selling.
Right. So I want to switch gears for a second and touch on something else that to be considered when you're setting your price, and that is competition. And so I'm gonna turn it over to Tequila in a second, but it's good to know what competition is doing. It's good to pay attention to your industry, to the market, to see. It's good to know. There's nothing wrong with information. Information is power, right? So to know what someone else in the same space is charging for what you're doing is absolutely crucial in setting your pricing. However, just because they drop the price doesn't mean you have to. Whatever their business model may not be the same. It may not be the same as your business model. Their target customer may not be the same as your target customer. They may be very cost driven, where they drive their prices very low and they depend on volume. You may be very niche, where you have a very specific audience and you offer a premium product, and so your volume may not be as high, but your price needs to match the premium type of service that you're offering. So don't always follow the leader when it comes to the pricing situation. You need to do an analysis and understand who is your target audience and what is it that you really should be charging for the services that you provide. Keila, what happens in your space, like when you're thinking that through?
So with entrepreneurship in certain industries, you can you quote unquote price yourself out? Technically yes, but also absolutely no. It's like a catch-22, like what you were saying. Like, if you're very cost driven and you're going to depend on volume, then that's fine. You can offer something at a lower price point as long as that volume coming in. But I myself am in the beauty industry, and if I'm working behind a chair, or I'm the one producing the final product at the end of the day, like from my own actions, I personally am not gonna be cost driven. I'm not banking on volume to give me my price or my goal at the end of the week or my margin. I'm gonna look for how can I charge the absolute most for what I do, or like not most like super expensive whatever, but I'm gonna want to get in fewer clients, spend more time with those few clients, and make more money off of those people in that group who understand the worth and the value of not waiting to get started on your hair. You could come right in and sit right down, who appreciate a clean environment, who appreciate premium products, who appreciate somewhere that's tranquil, that doesn't have a lot of noise or kids running around, or like who's going to really appreciate the environment and the health of and the knowledge that I'm bringing to the table. I'm going to focus on those people. And like you said, the audience that you are going for, you got to know. I knew when I started off from the very beginning, I need people who have to have their hair done. I need people who are higher up in corporate. I need people who are doctors. I need people who are principals. I need people who are lawyers. I need people who are showing up in front of people every day, giving presentations. They always have to look good. I did not want the fly-by-night person who, I got a little extra money, so I'm going to go in. Those people are fine. Of course, we would service you. But when I'm marketing towards the person who has to get it done. The way they look and how people perceive them are important to them. And it also affects their money. I want those people, because if I get those people, I'm always going to have a clientele. Even when stuff gets rough, Even when summertime comes around, I don't really have a slow summer. I know a lot of stylists do, or a lot of salons do, because people go get braids and this and that and the other, or they're, I don't have that. I have the clientele that always have to have their hair done. I have a clientele who prefer to wear their real hair. I have a clientele who prefer to come to a salon and they look at it as a relaxing experience. So I could look at the competition that's around me, but they weren't offering what I was offering to the people that I was offering it to. Their clientele was totally different from my clientele. And I'm in the university area, right, and a lot of the salons around were servicing students. Their market was the students, the passerbys, who is that wasn't my market at all. My market, you're not a passerby on the street. You get in your car and you come to me. You know, we're in a good location, so it doesn't take longer than 15 to 20 minutes, but that just wasn't my market. So I knew I could offer more of a premium price because I'm giving more of a premium experience.
Right. And that's, it's cool that you brought that up, because I think it circles back to what we said about value. And your value is determined by who you're trying to service. When you have a really good idea of who your target client is, who your target audience is, then you can start to articulate a very clear value proposition to that audience to say, this is what I bring to the table, and this is why my price is worth what you pay. It really is just simply listing, like Tequila just did, listing the services that you offer, listing what the environment is like, listing where you're located, listing all of the benefits that that customer, that client is going to get from your business. It's about that builds your value proposition. Once you have that value proposition, then you can start to determine, okay, I'm offering premium services. I'm going to spend a little more money on materials. I'm going to spend a little more money on location. I'm going to spend a little more money on all these different things. How can I set my price to support that? So it's really, really important that you think about the value that you bring to the table.
And we're going into like the next, we're like automatically doing it because each phase runs into the other. Like at first we were talking about how do you even come around to setting your prices? Like what do you even think about setting your prices? But now this is more, okay, I got this price. How do I present this price? How do you, and like you said, how do I attach this value to the things that I'm doing, to the art that I'm creating, to the business that I'm running? How do I portray this value to my market? How do I portray this value to my audience? And that's how you present yourself. And sometimes if you're not getting what you want, or when it's time for you to change because we evolve as we do business. You know, I mean, what you wanted when you first started out, you may not want 6 months in anymore, or you might want more. But then you have to switch some stuff up. So it's like, how do you show up? You may have to show up differently to your audience, especially if you're doing something new. And I had a friend, and when you was like, it's not about what it costs, it's about what something is worth, the value or whatever. It made me think of her because she says now it's not what it costs. What it costs is about what it's worth. And when you're trying to find people who's going to find the value and what it's worth to them, it reminded me of her because she started something very new in Memphis. She has a meditation studio, and that's just not a thing here. It really isn't, and especially with amongst the Black community, it's not a thing. Like, people do yoga, but that's not what she wanted to focus on. She really wanted to focus on the meditation and the mental part about it. And when I was talking to her, I worked with her some years ago, like 2 years ago, when I first got my business coaching certificate or whatever. And one of the things I was telling her is, you're going to have to show up differently. You can't just show up as a meditative instructor. You have to show up as an educator. You're going to have to tell your story. You're going to have to constantly tell your story. Get into it. You're going to have to explain a couple of things. You're going to have to explain the benefit of what you do. You know, like constantly putting those things out there. And it's just about the way you show up and people applying and making people apply that particular value that you want them to apply to you. Because a lot of times people don't know where to put you. When you are doing these quote unquote unessential things, you know, even though mental health is very essential, you might look at what she's doing as though, well, that's not essential. I'll just go get therapy. You're probably not. You know, most people don't just hop right onto the therapy wagon. A lot of people need a gateway into those type of things. So when you, especially when you're running a quote unquote non-essential business or a luxury business or boutique-ish, something that you don't necessarily have to add to your monthly bills, you have to just show up differently and make them see where to place you in their life. You have to really put that message out there because a lot of people don't know what type of value to put on you or where to put or how you are going to be instrumental in their life. And I know with doing hair, there could be a problem with a stylist will face or a barber will face. That's not important. And most of the time, a lot of people, when you have to cut back on expenses, you cut back on yourself. You cut back on the gym. You cut back on your mental. You cut back on makeup. You cut back on your hair. You cut back on your nails. You cut back on everything that is essentially takes care of you, and you worry about everything else. So I like to always say I'm a necessary, it's like an unnecessary necessity. Like perception means something. Regardless, you can't get away with how you look. You can't get away with your image in certain things. People are going to perceive something from you with how you look, and that's just the truth. So I like to be like, no, you have to put that in like a bill. I presented what I do or who I am and my talents to my potential clients like they're like, no, this is a part of your regimen. Like you could be going through hell and high water, but you don't need to be looking like that. You're like, don't you look like what you've been going through? So that's just how I present it. And the clients that come to me, that's how they feel. They like, I don't care what's going on in my life. I'm getting my hair done. At the end of the day, that's what makes me feel better. So that's what you're looking for. And that means presenting myself in a way like, no, this is valuable. This is how I add to your life. This is what happens when you get this, that, or whatever done. And you don't feel like you're missing anything. And people budget for you.
Yep. So similarly on the corporate side, I'm glad you said like people try to put you in a box, because when you're talking about setting your price on the corporate side or setting your salary on the corporate side, they do the same thing. HR is literally looking at your resume and trying to put you in a box, trying to figure out where can I place this person and are they going to bring value. So when you're thinking about the price is the price mindset from the corporate side and you're a corporate employee, you're thinking about, you know, how you're going to work, how are you going to negotiate your salary. One of the things that has really helped me over the course of my career is experience is great, but experience is time. What you want to put on your resume is where you added value. List the projects that you worked on, that you were heavily instrumental in doing something in, that and tell what the outcome was. What was the outcome of that project that you led or that you were a part of? If you got any kind of cost savings for a company, put that on your resume. Highlight it at the very top, bold, make it pink, whatever it is you need to do, put that at the top, because that is going to stand out to say that person is a change agent. They are a difference maker. That person knows what they're doing, blah, blah, blah. Yes, you can put all the education you want on there. You can talk about your experience, all the years that you've been in a certain sector. But if you have not made any impact, you don't have the space to negotiate on your salary. And that is what I would tell you as far as like when people try to put you in a box, don't allow people to put you in the box.
Absolutely.
Give them your book of work and tell
Absolutely.
them what box
at all
you fit
times,
in.
like you have to control your narrative. That's because at the end of the day, I know people like, well, I don't want to tell my story. I don't want to sell myself. I don't want to do this. I don't want to trust and believe. If you don't do it, they're going to do it for you. And unfortunately, people don't they're not going to over narrate you and who you are. They're not going to do that, because if I am a corporation owner or something like that, I'm trying to get valuable things for the least amount of money. That's just business. This ain't got nothing to do with that. That's just business. There's good negotiation on the corporation's, side. So you must control your narrative. So people don't know where to put you. I'm going to tell you where to put me. I'm going to tell you how I'm valuable. I'm going to tell you where you're going to succeed with me. I'm going to and you have to know that and I know a lot of people, especially down here in the South, we love to be humble. It's been beat into us since the day we were born. And knowing who you are and what you bring and what you can do and your value, that does not make you cocky. It does not make you arrogant, and it does not make you less humble. It makes you aware of who you are. It makes you absolutely conscious of who you are. And there ain't nothing wrong with that. You better walk in it, because you ain't going to get what you need out of this life just giving the bare minimum. Like, oh, yeah, I'm good. I'm fine. Okay, you're going to get a good price. Here you are. No, I'm exceptional. You need me on your team. That's what I do. I know this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You can trust me with it.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily like, stop thinking about it as selling yourself, because I mean, there's this negative connotation behind selling yourself, and it's actually not a bad thing, guys. I mean, we get sold shit all the time when you think about it. Everybody knows somebody trying to sell you something. Why not? It's just it's the way to go. It's the way that things are. But why not go into a space knowing exactly what you want, who you are, what you can do, what you're capable of, and being able to spit that out and say, this is me, this is what I do, this is what I'm good at, this is where I need work, this is what I've accomplished, this is what I've done. Take it or leave it. Honestly, because again, in the corporate space, they're going to look at a pool of candidates that have the same check boxes as you. Did they go to college? Yes. Do they have a certification? Yes. Do they have work experience? Yes. They're going to check all the boxes. What makes you stand out is your book of work, the things that you brought value to the table on. That's what's going to make you stand out. When you've established that baseline of this is what I'm worth, this is my value, this is what I've done, when you get into that negotiation space, they're going to give you a number, and you're going to look at that number and determine whether or not that's worth the value that you put on the table. And if it's not, you have space to negotiate. You have space to negotiate and say, I don't think that's right. Or
it doesn't matter if every corporation, they have a budget for you. They're going to offer you the absolute least amount of that budget, if not a little bit under that. Actually, they might not even offer you the least amount. They might offer you a little under that. They have a cap for you, and it's your job to get as close to that cap as possible. And we're not crazy. We know you probably have to be in a certain position to really get to that point where you are negotiating. But for the people we talk to when we were doing Squared and they one-on-one business advising, a lot of these people had these qualities. A lot of these people were in these top positions, and they could negotiate their salaries because they've done a lot of things. They have a lot of things on their resume. So there's a cap there for you. You got to do some exploratory deep diving, because they're not going to tell you what it is.
Right. And like we said, researching the competition is helpful. Researching salaries, do it. Okay? Do it. Research what the average salary in your state is for the position that you are looking to work in, and see and get an idea of the range so that you know you're looking at fair numbers. The other part that I was going to say was, when you go into that space, sometimes, your take home, your actual salary isn't the big picture. And some corporations can meet your expectations. Some will be like, hey, we have a cap here, we got to do X, Y, Z. That's your opportunity to start thinking about other fringe benefits that you could take on. For example, can you get in a sign-on bonus? What does that look like? What is the exchange of work for the sign-on that you want to get? Can you get additional vacation time? There's some companies that, they may not be able to meet your salary requirements, but they may be able to give you an extra week of vacation. Is that a value to you? Do you want to come into the company with 3 weeks of vacation instead of 2? That's a thing. Other benefits like car allowance. Sometimes they don't talk about stuff like that, but you can bring it to the table. Can I get a car allowance? Can I get a monthly stipend for my cell phone? Like, those are expenses that can be taken. And then the last one, and this was a heavy one for me, stock. If you get into an interview space with a corporation that has stock options, negotiate your shares. Negotiate your into your deal. If you have to take a little bit of a cut in annual for more corporate stock, it's not a bad idea. It's not ideal because it's not cash in your pocket, but it's cash in the future and an investment opportunity that other people won't necessarily get, because you're getting shares in the company. And a lot of times you can buy additional shares at a discounted price because you're an employee and you participate in their employee stock program, the ESP. So those are ways to think through how you can build a holistic value for your work. And it doesn't have to be stuck on the salary, but those are just tools. Those are levers that you can pull in order to get the maximum value.
And I know the time, like I said, the one time where I was in a position where I had to negotiate, the take home was just deplorable. Okay, just absolutely deplorable. I was like, okay, this ain't working. The take home, there's just no way. So one of my things was I was asking about insurance. Like, there's no way you're gonna pay me this price, and this is my take home, and then you're not going to give me insurance. Because how am I going to cover that? If I'm here and I'm working and I'm giving you X amount of my time, hours, and energy and experience, which was a lot, actually, so enough where I could, and I think they had like a non-compete contract as well. So you're going to be pretty locked in. So that means you need to take care of everything else in my life. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm not going to get paid where I felt like was a salary where I could get those extra amenities that I needed on my own, because that's the only way that works to me. Either you pay me an exceptional salary where I'm not, because especially if you're going to, put me in a non-compete or whatever, you pay me something exceptional where I can buy everything else I need in my life, or you're going to pay me lower, and then you're going to pay for everything else I need in my life. That means the insurance. That means I need time away, the vacation, the car. Like, I'm going to need certain perks to make this worth it. I can't take home X amount of salary, and then I also have to pay bills and everything. That doesn't work. And you also took away, and which is something very valuable to me, is freedom. I do not want to be somewhere where I can't do other things. I do not like to feel like I can't explore my options. I don't like to feel bogged down, locked down, like I can't grow or evolve. If you're going to put me in that environment, you're trying to take all the way care of me. I don't want to think about it. And that's just the truth. Yeah. And so the one part about the negotiation phase that most people are afraid of is getting denied, right? You really want the job, or you really need the job. But honestly, you have to tell yourself, they did not meet my negotiation or whatever. And the lady herself who was doing the whole regional, she was like, no, these are good points and all this stuff. She was like, it makes all the sense in the world. She was like, I just don't have the power to pull these type of strings. And I'm like, totally understand. But to me, it wasn't worth me taking that job to be underneath those type of constraints and still not have what I need to live the life I was trying. I might as well just stay where I am. And we have to be okay with that sometimes, with your demands not being met and you being all right with staying where you are or going to another venture. And I had other things in my head anyway, so it was perfectly fine. But we might have to be okay with that too, especially if you're in a position where if you're just looking for a change or whatever, I get you might take something because you have nothing else at the time, and that's not what I'm talking about. Totally understand, not judging anybody for that. But if you're just looking for another venture or another job, you are where you are, and you can stay there a little longer. Just stay there a little longer because that's a part of it. And it's not even with jobs. We do this with everything. You negotiate the type of life you're gonna live. You negotiate the type of relationships you have with your friends, your family, like all those things are, you put out this list of demands, honestly.
And I'm glad you brought that up too, because one, you made me think about that when you brought up the health insurance stuff, you made me think about, y'all, if you're in a corporate space and you are negotiating your salary, do the math on your healthcare premiums, please, because sometimes when you switch from one company to the other, what you're paying for healthcare in one space is not the same as what you're gonna pay in the other space. Everybody's healthcare ain't equal. So as you're negotiating your salary, I would take a beat, and I've done this in my own instance, where you add up what you pay monthly for insurance. Ask that company to give you their overall sheet on health insurance premiums and do some price comparison, because it cuts into what you take home. And if it's higher than what you pay for insurance today, then you need to up your negotiated salary to match so that you're not losing money. And Tequila made that point earlier, but you definitely need to do the math there and make sure you're not losing any money. So the other thing I thought about when we were talking about is negotiation is not a one-time thing. I want to make this clear for everybody. If you're up for promotion, if you take on more work, if you get a team, I know at one point I went from an individual contributor to a people manager. If anytime anybody adds any kind of extra to your plate that you didn't volunteer for, this is a complete like role change, responsibility change, you need to be kind of knocking on HR's door to say, okay, it's a benefit to you to ask me to take on more work. What is the benefit for me to actually do this work? Anytime you go from an individual contributor to a manager role, you should get a pay raise. I don't care where you are. I don't care what you're doing. You need to have a conversation with HR to say, hey, I got people to manage now. That's extra time. That's extra responsibility. What does that mean for my salary? If you get put on a special project that yields a certain outcome, you're expecting, money to come out of that. They're expecting revenue generation. I would go in that room and say, hey, can I get a bonus for that? If this goes through and the return on investment is healthy and we actually generate revenue, yes, can I get a percentage of that? That's my bonus for doing a good job on this project. There's nothing wrong with having those conversations. We just get so sidetracked in wanting to be a good employee that we don't think about having that conversation with our manager and HR. And you
again, it's rolling right along. Like we told you how to set it, what to consider setting your prices, how to present yourself once you figure out that price. And now this is going into raising your price. Like I said, it's not a one-time thing. I've been an entrepreneur full-time for 7, 8 years. I can't remember, 7 or 8 years. And I know I've raised my prices a couple of times during that. But and as you saying, your job role change, and then in the entrepreneur world, when you want to raise your prices outside of inflation and things like of that nature, you need to make sure you're reinvesting. You shouldn't even be thinking about raising pricing if you're not reinvesting in your business. Like outside of, I get raising your prices if if there's an inflation going on, if there's a shortage going on, if there's just an overall change in something outside of your control. Yes, you have to offset that cost. You just do. So that's normal. But just raising prices for the sake of raising prices, when you just you have to address some things, and I suggest you address some things that's going on in your own industry that's inside your control. So that means if you got to get a better line of products, if that means you got to get better tools, if that means you have to get more equipment or update your space, whether that's a makeover or offering different add-ons or commodities and stuff like that, whether that's updating, say if you listen to music and where you are, updating that Pandora subscription to not the free one without the ads. So I mean, that's something we invest in, because people pay for what, and they love to see where their money is going to. People love to see if I can see where my money is going to, and I think you're handling that money properly or in a way that I appreciate, I'm gonna pay. I don't care. I'm gonna pay. And that's just the truth. So so with raising prices in education is part of that. The same way you were saying, like if you say you went to school in a corporate world and now you got this new degree or something and this new skill set, that's a negotiation. And it's the same way with me. If I'm taking all these extra curriculum classes inside of my industry, but I'm doing this on my own, keeping up with that ongoing education. Every time I complete it, and I don't know if y'all know, again, I'm in the beauty industry. Those classes ain't cheap. They're just not cheap. I mean, out of pocket is for a class to be $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. That's not unheard of, depending on what you're teaching and what you're going to get out, the deliverables of that class. Depending on those deliverables, it is not crazy for you to pay $2,000 for a cohort, or $3,000 for a cohort, or an ongoing continuing membership somewhere with a coach and this and that. And that price has to be offset, because now I'm offering a whole new skill set. You're going to benefit off of me learning these different things. So, and all of that is a reinvestment within my business, whether I'm reinvested in myself or reinvested in the actual environment that I'm in. I'm reinvesting, and I have to offset that cost, and you're getting a different experience now. So I'm going to offset that cost as well, and you're benefiting from it.
Right. Yeah, and that's a good point. I like what you said about, reinvesting. That's like one of the key things that we try to tell our clients with Squared is, make sure you leave enough space in your profit to not only take care of your expenses, and pay your people, but one, to reinvest, and two, to pay yourself, because a lot of entrepreneurs don't pay themselves in their business, and that's a huge gap. But I want to take a second to differentiate a little bit, because there's, the expense of becoming better and offering more premium experiences, and you absolutely should plan for that. But let's say, for example, you decide to stay flat and you change nothing. It still warrants a price increase on a regular basis, because the market is not going to stay the same just because your business stays the same. The economy shifts, the price of goods shifts, and it goes up. And it's not even, not inflationary.
It's just the price goes up.
It's just regular cost of doing business expenses. Those things tend to go up. You may have bought a brand before, and that brand went through they did something that you're thinking about doing in your business. They upped their ingredients. They changed the way they market. They did something else, and the cost of that goes up. You still want to use that product, so you got to pay whatever it is they tell you to pay. That's their price increase to you. You in turn, going back to our original point, the pass through, you in turn need to go up on your price because you're passing through that expense down to your customer. It's nothing wrong with that, but every year you should look at that. And the reason you should look at it, even if you look, maybe you can look at it more than just once a year. You can look at it, quarterly, whatever's going on. But the reason that you need to do it is because those expenses it's a moving target. They're going to go up, they're going to go down, whatever. You need to make sure that you're covered and you stay informed about that. I can't stress that enough, y'all. Look at your pricing on the regular basis.
Many of us don't do that, and that's what I was saying. Those are external things that's outside of your control. Of course, you have to go up for those things. Like, there's nothing you can do. You know, it might not be time for you to do something internally yet, like this within your control, like updates or anything. You might keep up with all those things, but externally things change. This, like you said, just outside of inflation and all that. It's just the price of doing business. They're changing all the time.
So and if you don't pass it through to the customer, guess where it ends up coming out of your
out of your bottom line, out of your margin, and that's not gonna. And you're gonna ultimately get to a place where you're not enjoying what you're doing anymore because you're not getting what you need out of it, and that's where a lot of breakdown happens everywhere. You know, even in relationships and everything else. If you're not getting what you need out of something that you're putting everything into, you're gonna have a problem. You know, there's a problem. I'm not gonna feel good. I'm not gonna want to produce anymore. So,
and you're operating negative, which is definitely
a lot of entrepreneurs are doing it, and honestly, a lot of corporate workers are doing it too. You operate in a negative. You're not getting. You might not can, like you said, you might not can get your wage where you want it, but I'm also not getting sick days where I need it. Or if I don't have mental health days here. So if I need to take some time, I got to take it out of my vacation, or you know, like just silly stuff like that. So we can operate in a negative on several different levels. But yeah, that's a part of it for sure. And a lot of people, like you said, not paying themselves, and a lot of people aren't paying attention to how much things cost. And you'll be amazed at how often you need to be looking at that, because stuff costs all the time, and now we're dealing with not inflation but shrinkflation, where the things are smaller. The packaging may look the same, but the things are smaller. You're getting less of it, and you're paying more. So you're not, or you're paying the same amount, but you're just not getting as much product anymore. That's a thing too. So you just have to be vigilant about this stuff at all times, because your price has to reflect those things. If I'm buying as a stylist, I'm buying Lightner every other week now, when I used to do once a month. We need to add that on. We need to figure this out, because this is a lot. You know, it's adding up. It's adding up. And then like with that, we're gonna go into the final part of the pricing conversation, is standing in your price. Like, whatever you done said it, you done had all those things in mind, you present it, you raise it when you need to, and you have to stand in those prices. One of my things I used to say, everybody got a sob story. I can tell my story in the right tone with a little soft music playing in the background. You'll feel sorry for me too. Like, you got nothing to do. Look, this is not personal. It's so not personal. You really cannot take it personally. It's honestly, it's calculated, it's business, it's numbers. I cannot do this job full time and take care of you guys the way I need to and the way you want me to, making $2 an hour. There's just no way. You cannot pay me $32 and expect me to do the same job I would do at $150. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not making enough. I'm not gonna care the same way.
And I'm let me add to that real quick, and then I'm gonna let you take us home. In that spirit of standing in your price, and remember we talked about paying attention to what the competition does, but doing your own thing. When you're going through this, price adjustment period or price setting period, whatever phase you're in, you're going to get a client that says, well, so-and-so charges this to do blah, 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 blah. That is none of your concern, and I'm going to tell you why. You are not, so in corporations are protected by antitrust laws that make things like price fixing illegal. So a company can't come in and undercut and set a certain price on something without flagging some kind of federal something, to come in and be like, you can't do that. Y'all don't have that protection, okay? You don't have the protection that keeps the price at a certain level so that all people can play fair. That's not how it works in small business. In small business, it's every man for themselves. So if somebody comes in and undercuts you to the bone, there's nothing you can do about it. So why should that even be your concern? If that person is worried about what somebody else is paying, then the best thing that you can do to that person is to tell them, please go shop with that other person. That is the best solution, because it's not going to work for your business. Again, don't be scared to say that, or don't be scared to put that out there, because guess what? That's not your ideal client. The ideal client will pay what you put out there because they see the value.
Yeah, because you do the work to present yourself and add that particular value, and you show them where to place you. So, and with that standing in that, and like you said, they might find someone else, but that's a part of it. No matter what you do within your business, whether you're raising prices, whether you move locations, whether you use something differently, you're going to go through a period, like a purging period. Like 10% of your people are probably going to fall off. I mean, if you're lucky, you might not see much of a change if you're lucky, or you got to that sweet spot where you went up and you can handle your change of doing business, but it also doesn't affect your clientele that much either. So you might get that sweet spot, but you be prepared to go through a purge of the person who doesn't like change, who don't see the value in your new change, or who can't afford your new change. Don't be afraid of that. Now, the person who doesn't see the value, you can change minds. It's up to you whether or not you want to do that. It's up to you whether or not you feel like spending that energy of proving yourself like that to someone who, especially if they already have done business with you and you raise your price and now they like, I personally am not going to do it, but that doesn't mean it might not be worth it to you. The person I will work with and is the person who has been, loyal to you, and they just might not can afford it. I might adjust their frequency of when they come to see me, and I'll make a new plan for them. And we'll come up with some new ideas or whatever have you to where I can better assist you at my new price, but the price don't go down. You know what it is. I might not be able to see you that often now, but I still got you when you're here, and we good, and I still got you on this regimen, and that's fine. Now, but do be prepared with whatever changes you do to go through this purging. And then sometimes it seems a little bleak before it gets better, but it does get better. And like you were saying, paying attention to the competition, but don't get stuck into it. With small business, the industry is arbitrary. The prices are arbitrary. You can find somebody charging $500, and then on the other end, another person's charging $50,000. It's the same way with coaching. We're coaches. We've done coaching. We see people charge $60 for a call, and we see another call, they're not taking it for less than $1,200. Like, it's very arbitrary, but it's whatever that person, I don't know the work that they've done, and I don't know their business model. And then when we did talk to other entrepreneurs, we made their we're going to operate within the means and what makes sense for their business model. So my son, the way it works, may not be the same way that another person's salon works. So I mean, I can look at it, I can study it, but me studying is not more so what is your price. It's more so who are you marketing towards? What are you doing? What do you offer? I'm looking more towards that. And if I feel like we don't match up there, because it's very possible two things are true at the same time. Somebody can be in your industry and do something totally different than what you do. And they can be doing kind of the same thing. Y'all both can be doing, y'all both can be plumbers. But you do something with higher clientele. You do plumbing at, mansions and this and that. Your clientele is totally different. Your clientele could be a little bit more discreet. They might trust you more to be in their house. They might trust you more knowing that you're not going to say anything. You're not going to take anything. You're not going to take pictures. Like, it's so much in there versus the next plumber down the street. He do the same stuff. But his clientele is more of the general population. They might not have the same amount of trust. You know what I'm saying? So totally different. So staying in what you're doing is, especially if you're an entrepreneur, the industry is so wide. There's really not a cap to be that's out there. It really is how you present yourself. It really is how you told the open population to apply your value, where to apply your value, where do you fit in. That's totally up to you. So, but just know and be okay with if you appreciate volume and all you want to do is be busy, you might not want to charge $1,300 for a service call. Premium and volume usually don't go together. I've never seen a high volume luxury store. I'm not saying they don't exist. They are unicorn. That's all I'm saying. They might exist, but it's a unicorn. It's boutiques out here. You like, how are they still in business? But if they sell one thing at $35,000, they got that one thing at $35,000. Meanwhile, you're open every day, 7 days a week, making $10,000 a month. But if you appreciate volume, if you appreciate constantly being busy, if you appreciate if that gives you some type of solace of getting up every day and doing something at a high volume, then that's fine. You can charge a lower fee. But usually luxury and volume don't go together. So just know that and stand in it. So if you're going to be putting out this premium price, don't expect to always be, booked to the brim. And honestly, in the beauty industry, that's a thing. We say if you're so booked, like your demand is so high and you're so booked that you can't get anybody in or anything like that, it's time to raise your price. You're too cheap. Especially if you don't want to be that booked or that pulled on and that time constraint. You're too cheap. It's time for you to raise your price. And that has been said so many times before. But just know, as soon as you do, I hope you can withstand that purge. It's going to happen and ride it out. So.
Right. Yeah. Think iPhone versus Nokia, guys. You're not gonna pay $800 for a Nokia phone. I ain't gonna do that.
Nope. Y'all know Nokia was a G. A Nokia was the phone back in the day. You can drop Nokia off a 100-foot building, and Nokia would still work. But it was about how Apple branded, how Apple marketed. There's a feeling of elitism there. Like, and that's a part of it. That's how it was presented.
Exactly.
And that's about presentation. And you found value and worked in it. So, but it's no any worse, no, but you'll look at it and be like, yeah, no. It do the same thing. And that's what part of the point. It's in the same industry, it does the same thing. But one, you look at it like, Yeah,
Yeah,
basic, poor
basic,
people talk. Like that's
basic.
how
It's
one
basic.
of them you
It's a
treat like
basic
that, and the other one you
focus.
treat like, yeah, luxury. It's like it's all in the presentation, and that's all we're saying. Like it's all in the presentation. So is there a pricing out kind of sort of? Yeah, you could, depending on what geographically where you are or whatever. But if you're not marketing towards the people in your immediate surrounding area, that doesn't matter then. It doesn't matter where you are geographically, especially if you're digital. You can charge a premium
Right.
price for a premium product or service if you're digital and you're reaching out to people in other places. So even with looking at your competition, you don't have to get stuck geographically. You don't have to get stuck with up the street
Yeah.
or whatever. You can really research the whole market and figure out where you want to be.
Yeah. And Instagram is a good tool to do that. Go look at people in the same industry. It flips me out every time I think about this, y'all. But I want to say about maybe it had to have been about 3 years ago. Y'all weren't in this conversation, but Tequila called it. She said Instagram is gonna become a search engine. She said it. She said it. I will put everything on it. She said it about 3 years ago. Like right, maybe around like in the middle of the pandemic or so. She said it, and she did a whole blog about it. She did a whole post about it, and next thing you know, it became a search.
Obvious. Like all you have to do is pay attention. I'm trying to tell you. And are you gonna sound crazy? Yup. Yeah, I was like, I was saying to people, and people like, well, not quite. I'm like, yeah, you don't see it. You don't see it. You don't see it. And sometimes you gotta just leave it to yourself too. But if you're paying attention, one thing about business, one thing about people be peopling. They pretty much the same. When you operate how you operate, you can call it. You can really call it sometimes. It's only a handful of times where somebody's gonna surprise you, but most of the time it is what it is. And if you just look at some of the tools that they have incorporated inside of Instagram, like now you can add topics to certain posts you put out. You can add alt text so you're more accessible to people who have problems hearing or seeing. You can literally search. It has a search thing on there. You can search what you're looking for, and it's literally. And then once Facebook bought it, and YouTube is a part, like all of those things, they kind of is a conglomerate, and they go together, and they're gonna put certain things in place to make all these things kind of interconnected. So most people now, if you're a business, and I'm not saying TikTok doesn't work, but TikTok works for a certain group of people, a certain audience is on TikTok, a certain audience is on Snapchat, a certain audience is on Pinterest, on LinkedIn, on Twitter. But right now, in my opinion, Instagram is a really, really good way to get your business in front of one of the most diverse populations, I would say. And people come to Instagram like they go to Google to look for people. And I've seen it in my chair, like doing people's hair. They'll ask for something, and I'll be like, well, I don't know about this person. They'll go, they're not pulling up Google anymore. They'll pull up Instagram, type in Memphis, whatever, and they're searching profiles.
Yep. And the crazy part is, y'all, going back to knowing like what your industry is doing, corporate wise, or you take us 10, 15 years ago, it took forever to do market research. It took forever to go out and learn about what another company was doing. Some of that stuff was so close to the vest, you couldn't get information about nothing. Whatever you are selling, whatever it is you're doing, if you go into Instagram and search a similar customer, not only will you be able to see what their products are, where they're located, who the owner is, you can almost 9 out of 10 they're gonna have a marketplace set up there too. You can see what the products are, what they charging for them, how they're structured, how to set up an appointment, how to place an order. It's not like so removed anymore where you got to do this stuff from scratch. Like, stop reinventing the wheel. Go out there, research, and see what the heck is out there. And if it works in your scenario, feel free to leverage that. It's free information, and you don't have to know. You don't have to be on Bloomberg all the time or be in the in SMB and stuff like Small Business Association and all that. You don't have to do that. Go and
free.
Just
that's the mind blowing part. Now, sooner or later, it won't be. It's free because they already making it where it's not as free anymore.
Right.
So, but we're still pretty much in a really good position because you can still get all this information. There really isn't any more gatekeepers. You can really find your way around the gatekeepers. You can reach right out to the brand or the business or the company. It's really a tool, and a lot of us are using it passively. But if you are in a business, if you're running a business, or even if you're really serious about your job in corporate, do the research. Be very intentional about who you're following on here. Be intentional about who you're building the community with, because this is what it is. It's social networking. It's not really, I know we call it social media because we're looking at it as an entertainment form, but if you're really serious about using it, it's social networking. So following the right people, and then interacting with the right people, or just really navigating. I've researched so much stuff okay, I'm interested in this. I look through hashtags. What this person hashtag? Okay, so let me look at this person. This person over here. I done connected so many dots just from looking at captions and hashtags and who people are adding. Oh, this is how y'all got into this.
Right.
I mean, take my notes.
Yep. And on the corporate side, if you can't find it on Instagram, y'all, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the Instagram for corporate folks. Everybody's on LinkedIn. There's articles there. It's not just hiring anymore. Like people say, it's social networking. It is literally the space to build your network. Now, I am not on LinkedIn, and I'll go into that during another story, but I'm not on LinkedIn. But I do understand and see the benefits of using that tool to better build your network. And also, there's salary information out there. There's role information out there. There's overviews of the companies. You can follow those companies on LinkedIn just like you do on Instagram and see what they're about, see what they're, what they stand for, get an idea that's somewhere.
I was when I was doing lives, 2 years ago, 3 years now, Lord time. Anyway, when I was doing lives with different entrepreneurs during the pandemic, I would get on LinkedIn, and that's how I would find people to do these lives with. Now, fortunately, now I can just talk to you, and I ain't got to do all that recruiting and vetting because it is tiring. But I did use that for that. But since I don't do that anymore, I'm not on LinkedIn like that because I'm not gonna use it that intentionally. So there's really not a reason for me to be on there like that right now, anything like that. So use these tools. They really are tools. Please really learn how to use them. Do some research on them. Look up what's the most beneficial way. What are beneficial ways of using these social networking sites? Which one does what? Because not each one is worth your time. Not each platform is worth you spending energy there. Like we just said, we're not on LinkedIn because we're not going to intentionally use it for what it needs to be used for. So there's no reason for it. And you might not need a YouTube. You know what I'm saying? If you don't plan on doing long content videos or whatever, or if you're not comfortable with that particular setup. Just really do your research and see what's going to work for what you do in your business or in your position or in corporate. Really look into it. Let's be more intentional about the things that we have access to. because we didn't always have access to things.
Yep.
And we have so much access now.
Mm-hmm. All right, y'all. Well, we are up and past our time limit, but this was good dialogue. So we'll be dropping a few tips about pricing into the little message space there at the bottom of the box. Make sure you read those, take those to heart, and join us again next Sunday for another topic. We will reveal what that will be sometime this week. But we will be joining again next Sunday, 1 p.m. Central. This is Small Talk Big Biz with Tiff and Tequila. Appreciate y'all watching.
Bye-bye.
Until next
Thank
time,
you.
see y'all.